Second too long. Hello, everybody. I'm Raina from Garden District Bookshop, and I want to thank you for tuning in again to Virtual Happy Hour this evening. Tonight, I'm excited to be talking to Kent Wascom. He has 3 historical novels, Blood of Heaven, I'm just going to click the button and bring him onto the screen so we can start talking to him. Hi, Kent.
Hello.
Hi.
Everybody.
How are you?
Doing well. Doing really well.
Now tell me, where are you? Because you're not in New Orleans.
No,
right?
not at all. I'm in Norfolk, Virginia.
Ooh,
Which
and
I've only recently learned how to, or developed the ability to pronounce. My redneck ass wants to say Norfolk. It's Norfolk.
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 Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost bad.
There are a lot of lewd rhymes about it.
Oh, I'm sure there are.
There's a lot of lewd rhymes. It's a port town, you know. Things are lively.
That's one of those things that, like, you know if you're a local or not, because it takes you a while to learn those little bits.
Exactly.
Sounds fun. So how long have you been over there? I know
2 years now. 2 years.
2 years. And you're teaching, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that's what took you over to Virginia?
Yeah, exactly. It was a gig. It was the job.
There you go.
A wonderful place, a wonderful program. I'm still below sea level. Top 3 climate threatened cities in the United States. So just feeling
that's
right.
Right? I was like, that's how you pick them. You just pull it up. You're like, are we still below sea level?
I just need maximum water related stress for my own equilibrium.
Right. How do they do with the flooding there?
They do good. I mean, you know, there's a lot of low-lying areas, and people know where to park and when to park, and it's kind of that thing. You know, they're not going to call it the neutral ground, but that's where they're putting their cars. You know, a lot of opening you know, it's a city, and so it's kind of dense seeming to me. So it's parking garages open up and that kind of stuff. But yeah, they're used to living with water. That's for sure.
See, that is a brilliant idea with the parking garages, and then you can just park. Now, I might be concerned. I guess in the beginning, I'd be concerned about getting stuck up there. I'm like, I don't want to put my car 3 flights up. When does the water go down? Like, locals are like, oh, it's just going to be 3 hours. It's no big deal. But like for me, I'd just be afraid that I'm going to be stuck up there forever now. I can't get out.
Yeah. But no, it hasn't been. We've lucked out. We haven't caught anything bad. Like, I have a bunch of friends who have kayaks, but unlike, you know, in New Orleans, I don't like see my friend go by in a kayak like on my road. Not so.
And that has happened twice in the last like month or so. By my house, and I live in the Marigny. Like, I don't even live like traditionally, right? But no, my block. It's like I'm in one of those blocks that fills up. It's like the last one to go away, and you can walk like 2 blocks away. It's fine. It's fine. Like, I mean, it's raining, but you know, you could walk there. But where I am, it's like almost knee-deep water. So that's fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
So you were telling me, we were talking, I have to show off my drink. So even though I know you're only drinking coffee, I have to show off my drink this evening. I found this cider. It's guava cider. Ace is the name of the company, and evidently it's a West Coast thing. And I am in Oregon still again this week. So we went out to eat the other night, and there was pineapple cider. I'm like, I have to try that. Yeah. And then it was really good. So I immediately went to the grocery store. I'm like, how do I find this? Can I only get this at that one bar? So I found the guava cider. So that's what I'm drinking tonight.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm in my office at the university, so I'm not drinking at all. I'm being a good boy. I have a cup of coffee. I believe it's Mellow Joy. It might be CDM. I don't know, but it's a good Louisiana coffee.
It's good.
At the least. I mean, obviously, I've been enjoying things all day, but definitely not in this space, for sure. But that's funny with the cider. So everything up here is like nautical themed. It's a port town. It's a Navy town. It's the Mermaid City, which is very cool for me too, as someone who likes mermaids a lot. But for having someone with a 4.5-year-old who's super hyped that there's a mermaid statue every block, and a giant like octopus monster, you know, 2 blocks from our house and stuff like that. But it's super cool. But there's a cider company, or whatever, the distiller, a brewer, around here that's called. Oh man, I'm about to plug them. But they have one called Sly Clyde, and if you're into cephalopods, like I am, he's on there. But yeah, he's a super cool side. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Oh well.
Oh, see, there was multiple ones. I typed in Norfolk and cider, and I got a few.
You got a zillion. Yeah, it's like a brewery. It's Brewery Clyde, and they grow apples up here, so there's a lot of cider deals. Yeah, Sly Clyde. That's his name. That's the one that we buy because he's a sly little octopus. But that's a thing. That's why also this felt like a really good move because it's just kind of my vibe. It's 20 minutes from the beach. I'm a coastal boy. But the East Coast, it's different. It's definitely different. That's for sure.
Yeah. See, I mean, I've never lived in the North Coast, so I'm from Florida originally, from Fort Myers, Florida.
Oh, okay.
And then I've lived in New Orleans. Those are only 2 places I've lived. Traveled all over, but only lived there. And it's hard to imagine living in a landlocked place.
Yeah. No, that's the only time I've done it. But as a little kid, my mom and I lived in Auburn while she went to school there in Alabama, which was totally fine. I just ran around in the country. It was very like Truman Capote short story, kind of childhood moment. But other than that, no. Like I've stayed places for 6 months or so. But even Hammond was too far from the water for me. I got stressed out. But yeah, definitely. Definitely.
It doesn't make any sense because it's not like I have a boat. It's not like I'm going anywhere. Like I can't escape by water. It's not happening. But yeah, I agree. It's just kind of and being here in Baker City is incredibly landlocked. I am 2.5 hours from Portland, Oregon, an hour and a half from Boise. It's in the middle of Oregon. Whoa. Beautiful, beautiful country. But you do start to get this sense of like if I think about, I'm gonna stay here, I immediately go, well, how am I getting out? How do I get out? Like, I feel like I'm on an island. Of course I'm not. But like, yeah, immediately like, I'm visiting for a week. I love it here. I'm going to stay forever. Ooh, no, I don't think I can do that. There's mountains. I don't know how to, the Oregon.
You're totally trapped.
Right. I'm totally trapped. Like in my mind, I'm completely trapped here. Which is not accurate at all.
But not the vibe. Not the vibe.
Exactly.
Not the
vibe. Okay, so I have seen on your Instagram recently, you've been posting a lot of old retro covers of books, old books, not just the covers, to be clear. And I love it. Because any book lover, I think, has an appreciation for those retired covers. I don't know that there's a word for it exactly, but they don't even have to be original. I actually have a book. I have this book, and I found this on my mother-in-law's shelf. The cover's from 1982. The book is from like 1968 or something. So this is clearly not the original cover, but it's simple, but I love it. It's got that retro like thing. You wouldn't see this cover today. This would not be. You're just not a random skeleton on a.
No, they're not selling books like that anymore. It's obviously like I've always been a book collector, but those were the books that like I bought as a kid because they were accessible, right? Like literally accessible.
Yeah.
Mass market paperbacks were it for all of us, and then for like if you were buying a lot of your books as a little kid at like old-timey, Quonset hut used bookstores and Goodwill and stuff. That's what was there. But when I was little, it was all these, because of who was dying at the time, paperbacks from the 60s and 50s and 70s. So I just have a few that survived Hurricane Ivan in Pensacola. Some of my stuff made it out of that. And so I have a few of my like OG ones, but I collected them for a long time. And then when I went to grad school, because so much of what I had was like pulp. I became a very snotty little baby and was like, I'm not reading this trash anymore. Like I'm reading high literature. Yeah, exactly.
You know, you have to have
insufferable MFA student with, who's insecure and all that stuff. And, it took a while, like after graduating and publishing my like first 2 books to like get back into reading a lot of the stuff that I enjoyed reading. Right. So now it's become like a thing that I really dig. And, I feel like, as I'm sure you've seen on like Instagram and elsewhere, it's becoming more of a thing. Like, I feel like for a particular subset of nerdy people, the mass market paperback is the vintage LP of, as the vintage LP is to 2007, the mass market paperback is to right now, for book nerds. But, with things like Grady Hendrix and Will Erickson's Paperbacks from Hell series, which now is an imprint, to what Mr. Tarantino's doing in a couple of weeks. The Once Upon a Time in Hollywood organization is going to be mass market paperback size. So I feel like it's a thing that's kind of happening too, as much as any like, super niche collecting thing. But yeah, I love it. And, one of the good things about living in places that aren't completely paved over and remade and rebuilt and shiny and chrome, there are still used books. And there, we're speaking of which, for just a shout out for Old Norfolk, another reason why I wouldn't have moved here. There wasn't an independent bookstore. There's a real proper independent bookstore, prints books, but there are a bunch of little used bookstores. So a lot of what I've recently gotten is from a place called Genie's in Portsmouth, which is across the river from us, and it's just like Alibaba's cave. Like, it's amazing. Like once in a lifetime stuff out of there, and the owner's wonderful. So, but anyway, shout out to Genie's, because half of the stuff I'm gonna pull out might have been from there. Actually, I guess 2 of the ones that I picked just to like show off. These are old timey ones. These made it out of Pensacola in 2005, just in time for me to turn around for Katrina. But so what I think some New Orleans related stuff. If you're up for me jabbering about it for a second,
yeah, please do.
Up and say like, isn't this cool?
No, I have a stack.
Excellent.
Well, I have a stack to do that. So
beautiful. I'm so psyched. I'm so interested to see.
Yeah, no, you go for it. You go for it.
Okay, I'll go first. Well, and I do this one because not only is the book significant, as I'm sure we got some folks watching from New Orleans and elsewhere, it might be for y'all too, but it's important to me because it was like a copy that, if I recall correctly, had kind of been in the family. Like one of my siblings might have had it for school, but it was around. We didn't have a ton of books in our house, but this was one of them. It's Confederacy of Dentists. Just really, really
love that cover.
Yeah. And, you get the like almost movie tie-in adaptation.
Yes, right? If that ever happens.
Yeah, it looks so great. But, even more poignantly for me, it's published by Grove Press, who's my publisher. Yes. This is under the colophon that I always want to be published under, but no one will do it because it's not in paperback first. But the Black Cat, where is he at? Yep. The cutest colophon. He's such a sweetie. But this one's great. I love it for a lot of reasons. Obviously, there's a bunch of extra problematic stuff going on in there. And it's a slog to read straight through, frankly. That's my
Confederacy of Dentists. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, it's one that at this stage I'm like happy to cherry pick, which is probably better for me, critical faculties wise. Anyway, but I find myself very frequently, because accents come up, a lot, just in interactions, and especially in the South. But that little note at the beginning about like what a particular kind of New Orleans city accent is that I've had to explain to people, which I think actually kind of probably came up when, oh, never mind. I'm not going to bring that up because that's weird. Sorry, I had a weird anecdote.
Oh, weird anecdote.
Weird anecdote that's contemporary news issues related. But anyway, it's the one that says like there's a New Orleans City accent associated with downtown New Orleans, particularly with the German and Irish Third Ward, that is hard to distinguish from the accent of Hoboken, Jersey City, and Astoria, Long Island, where the Al Smith inflection, extinct in Manhattan, has taken refuge. And that's so true. Like that's how my grandmother sounded, right? Like she sounded like I could teleport her to Long Island and she would sound right. But when you try explaining that to someone from New York, it's like it's not possible. Like because when we hear, we see it in a movie, it's someone with a very thick like Alabama drawl, right, or like a accent. But I know I love that note just because it's the thing that I can type up like, no, this is what it is. This is what that sounds like. But that's that. I think that's an expected and anticipated one, but it's such a beautiful cover. Just going to show it again.
It is, yes.
So lovely. So great.
Yeah. I'm jealous of that book because I have 2 copies on my shelf. Like I actually have one I'm taking home for no reason whatsoever. Like I have one at home. And then, like I said, I've been going through my mother-in-law's things and all of her books, and we've had to be like calling through all of her books. And there's this copy of Confederacy of Dentists. I'm like, I do not need this, but that's on my go home shelf over here
yeah, for sure.
for no reason.
It's good to have spares. I mean, that's what I tell myself. But I do, like, I give books to people, and when you give, especially like for me, it's like 97% of my interactions are with students.
Right.
So, if you give a book to a student, like you shouldn't expect it back. Frankly, like I'm not going to be sitting there, bulldogging anybody to give me a book back. So I like to have multiples of as many things as possible. But that's also a great excuse to.
Oh yeah, I can use that.
More books. Yeah. So the second one. Now I should have looked up. I'm going to do it right now while I talk. The film adaptation. But anyhow, it's this book, Walton to Darkness by Cornell Woolrich. And Cornell Woolrich was a mystery and thriller writer from the 20s to the late 60s when he died. I'm going to put it down real quick, but his books are the reason why, or among the reasons why, the word noir is used to describe a particular stripe of mid-century American fiction, because his books, he wrote this series of books, The Bride Wore Black, Black Alibi, Black Curtain, etc. And when those were translated into French in the 40s and 50s, people are saying the word, and there's a particular editor whose name I'm going to forget now, or a publisher, and that's where it came from. It's like these are noir novels. So it's thanks to old Cornell, who has some kind of New Orleans connection. I can't remember at this point. His family were like world travelers, some sort of State Department thing, I think, or whatever the the early 20th century State Department might have been. He grew up in Mexico for the most part. But anyhow, he wrote, he started out as like an F. Scott Fitzgerald acolyte in the 20s. And he wrote like these really, jazz age party novels. And then he kind of got dark and started writing really horrifying novels about people who can't escape their circumstances. Again, books like Black Alibi, which was adapted by Jacques Turner into The Leopard Man. Rear Window, which folks might know. That's Cornell Woolrich. Regular people in terrible distress is kind of his vibe.
That's his thing.
Wonderful book. I Married a Dead Man. It is what it sounds like, though I guess not as gross as it sounds. A moral dilemma novel. But anyway, Walton to Darkness is like his big, fat, messy historical novel. And as an author of several, big, fat, messy historical novels, it's near and dear to my heart for that reason, but also because it's set in 19th century New Orleans. It's got a bumbling oaf of a male protagonist and a just utterly suspenseful, mysterious, and terrible femme fatale at the heart of it, who's kind of bamboozled this clod into thinking that she is his fiance. She's not. And she takes him to Mardi Gras, and things get dark. There's a ton of details that are wrong. But who cares?
Right, just enjoy it. Just enjoy it. Don't pick it apart. Just enjoy it.
But if I am correct, the thing I was going to look up was that Francois Truffaut, I believe, adapted it in the 80s. I have not seen the adaptation though.
Ooh.
He did one of Bride Wore Black that's wonderful, with Jim Moreau. But yeah, well, why don't you guys?
Why is it not at the top of the Google search?
I know, this is terrible. It must not be. It's going to be some other French director, and I'm going to seem like a Philistine. That's fine. Sorry, not good. This isn't made for good.
You're like, what kind of professor am I? I don't know the exact name of the French director. It's okay. It's all right.
Oh my God, there's 2 adaptations. I'm really sorry.
Now you're like, what are you even doing there?
There's one from 2001 with Antonio Banderas and Angelina Jolie. Like, I'm gonna go home tonight and watch this movie.
Right?
This looks intense. The other one is called like Mississippi Maharaja or something like that.
That doesn't sound offensive at all.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it's well thought, well considered. French film from 1981 that probably takes everyone's feelings into account as that time period and those folks are known to do. Speaking of which,
you're like, and segue.
And, someone else. No, my completely insane ones over here, and it doesn't count, I guess, because it's not a vintage paperback, but it's but before I get to that, the last truly vintage paperback I wanted to mention was this, the collection Pale Horse Pale Rider by Catherine Ann Porter, who many Louisiana connections and New Orleans connections, a Baton Rouge resident for quite some time, when she was up in LSU's English department with her husband, I believe, and back when Robert Penn Warren and that whole crew were up there. But anyway, some of you might have heard the title novella, or she hated the word novella. She thought it was like a weak, silly word for short novel. Like, short novel is what Catherine Ann Porter would have preferred. But anyway, the title short novel from this collection is about the 1919 flu pandemic, and it's really intense because that was a pandemic that was claiming young people primarily, and it's 2 young people at the center of that story. The New Orleans centric one is called Old Mortality, and it's kind of like an Alice Munro story that's been stretched out in a weird way. It's like it's a Southern Gothic Alice Munro story. Have you read it?
I haven't. But that one I'm writing on my list.
It's super cool. It starts with part 1 is Aunt Amy. And Aunt Amy is like the legendary aunt that the other relatives like see her picture and they're like, oh boy. And these 2 sisters are wanting to find out. They want to know what's the secret. And it's like the sisters are living in 1904. Aunt Amy was tearing it up in like 1880 something or 1890 something. So we get Aunt Amy's errors and mistakes that she falls in, with this gentleman, Gabriel, and then we see the kind of repercussions on these young women as they're trying to figure out their place, because they went to, Aunt Amy and the whole family were in New Orleans, and the girls have been sent to convent school in New Orleans, but the family, like Catherine Ann Porter's family, are living like in Texas at this stage. So they're separated, they're distant from this. And as I'm sure you have experienced, and anyone watching who's familiar with the area experience, that when people get distanced or separated from the New Orleans metro area or South Louisiana in general, there's a lot of like mewling, bleeding, gnashing of teeth, etc. that happens, complaining, or a lot of, at least, yearning, as one of my teachers would say, and it gets that really well, and especially through putting it with a young person who's trying to like shape their identity. And as someone who formerly was that young person, like living in Pensacola, Florida, who, I could somehow as a teenager make myself think that wasn't awesome to be like living on the beach and stuff.
Right? Oh yeah.
I want to be back in New Orleans. But I was flipping through it today, kind of getting prepared. It is I who have no place, thought Miranda, who of course is young and, it's very dramatic. It is I who have no people. Where are my own people in my own time? And it's like that idea of like, I don't have a time, I don't have a people, that has like, that stuck with me so much, because that's kind of, when in my more precious moments.
Oh, well, I remember like that was one of my things growing up, like as a teenager. My place, like I never hated the town where I grew up. A lot of people hated Fort Myers. I never did, but I always felt like it was in the wrong time. This is not my time somehow. And I don't know what my perfect time was, but that was the thing, that my not fitting here was like, this is the wrong era for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely understand that. And then like, once I came to New Orleans, that was my place.
Yeah.
I mean, I was one of those people.
I mean, that's the amazing, or one of the wonderful things about it, that is that it, like, and this is what blew, my wife is from Boston and New York. And when she moved down with me, and we lived in Covington, but obviously consistently cycling through, but her thing was like, oh my God, like it just absorbed everybody. Like it absorbed everyone who came, like you just kind of got mushed in and you took on the cool parts of the stuff that was there. And by force or not, but the that's it. That is the fascinating thing, and that it's still, and I don't remember, this was a long time ago at an event in New Orleans, and someone was making noises about the amount of people who had come in the last decade from Williamsburg, right, from Brooklyn or whatever.
Right, yeah.
And it's like, this is that is the point of this city, and that if it's not strong enough to like bring people in, then that's a huge problem. Like that's what it has always been, a place where disparate people are coming together. And on that note, my absolute
you're really good at the segue.
Well, like it looked okay. But my absolute favorite New Orleans novel, bar none. And I say this with many friends whose work I admire and other writers whose work I absolutely positively follow my for. But this is the one I love the most. And it's called The Mysteries of New Orleans. It's by Baron Ludwig Reitzenstein. I don't know, because I'm very far removed from my German American heritage. It was a serial novel published in a German language newspaper in New Orleans in the 1850s. So pre-war, and there were a ton of these papers. The Baron himself, he came over in 1848. That's when a good chunk of my dad's family did too, from Germany. This is around when like the unification's happening, and they're like, put you in the army. People are like, no, thank you, bye. I do not need to go kill some kid from the other village. Like, it's fine. You can stay loose. But anyhow, it's the guy himself is completely fascinating. And this, by the way, was translated from German and edited by a man who at the time was a professor at the University of Louisville, I believe. Let me make sure. No, I'm sorry. University of Missouri. Steve Rowan is who did the translation. And the introduction, which kind of talks about this guy's life. He was the scion of like, not Prussian nobility, but Bavarian nobility. So they were Catholic, which, that's quite a bit of the streams of immigration that came to New Orleans were Catholic Germans. Which is why, if you look at not Dusseldorf, but the town over Cologne, their Mardi Gras with the jester and all that stuff, like it looks just like it, much more so than some of the French places, or certainly some of the Spanish cities. But anyhow, the novel itself is about everything, but it's like this unbelievable swirling Gothic mess, where this undead preacher, I'm going to read just the back. A nightmare is 200 years. Proto-Nietzschean Superman has come to punish the South for the sin of slavery. Heralded by the birth of a black messiah, who's the son of a prostitute and a decadent German aristocrat, the coming revolution is depicted in apocalyptic terms, and it is. It's amazing. And it's one of the few 19th century novels, and even the 20th century novels, that could pass muster in terms of its politics in some ways. Obviously, there's quite a few stub toes and bark chins here. But this is someone who thought very strongly and felt very strongly about enslavement and its ills. and evils. But he also, like, among the amazing things, there's a loving lesbian relationship presented here, uncritically, to the extent that a lurid, serial novel, but it's not played for laughs, it's not played for revulsion, and it's rarely played for titillation, which again, it's 1855. So it's a startling thing, but it's just a blast. Like, it's a big, messy blast. It's so weird. It used to be on the shelf at Garden District for sure, because I think it stayed in print. Johns Hopkins has kept it in print. But yeah, Mysteries of New Orleans, it's just utterly magic, because it's like seeing not only a world that is long gone, but a world that the world of its time didn't know existed. This very specific immigrant world and vision of the place and of the country. That's quite different, that differs greatly from the prevailing attitudes of the Anglo and even the Creole South. So yeah, Mysteries of New Orleans, I just can't squeal enough about that book. Everything else I talked about is great. This is like it's a serial novel, so you can kind of pop around. Like, every chapter is pretty fun. Sometimes there's digressions. This is part of a thing that was like hip at the time. Novels like The Mysteries of Paris, or The Wandering Jew is another big serial novel of the time, or Melmoth the Wanderer, which might be a bit earlier, actually. But they're all kind of built on the similar, take a city, we're going to do the weird thing with it. It gets gothicized, and that's it. That's why Michael Chabon's second book, Mysteries of Pittsburgh, right? That's the ironic for that book. But yeah, that's my one. I think that exceeds that's my stack. That's my stack for now. So I want to hear about yours.
Yeah, okay, so mine are going to be a little different in that I haven't read all these, because these are ones that I've pulled from my mother-in-law's shelf recently in the last week or so, and I'm taking them all home so that I can now own them and read them. The first one is The Verse by the Side of the Road. It's all of the Burma shave signs from all 600 signs, and the story of Burma shave.
So cool.
I know. I was like, the awesome company, and there's weird little, there's the drawings. It's just a dude with money, but there was some other better ones, which of course I'm not finding right at the moment. I don't know that. Here's just a whale that has different. I don't know if that was since I haven't read it. Was that like a billboard they took out? I don't know.
1920s memes.
Right? Yes, exactly. And at first my husband was like, "Oh, look, here's a book. There's some old man who would love this book," and I went, I think I might be that old man. He thought that was going in the Salvation Army pile, and I was like, no, I don't think it is. That's going home with me. Okay.
That's awesome.
And then I found, so Snoopy, I put that on my Instagram the other day. That's just fun. But then I found Peanuts in French. Now, I don't speak French, but I was like, how am I going to get this again? So I have to, right? I have to take this home. And because it's in, obviously, little comics.
Oh, yeah.
I can just Google Translate that.
That's awesome.
With the image translate of it. So if I can't figure it out, then I can just cheat with my iPhone.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so I'm taking the set, and it's not the same book, but I've got.
That's neat. And speaking of memes, that's what you need is one good panel. Lucy in French. That's great.
Yeah, so that was fun. Then there's a couple this one I have not read. I've wanted to read this though. It's translated from Japanese, and translated books they're kind of my niche genre that you can get me every time. It doesn't really even matter what it's translated from. I'm like, I will give that a shot.
Good.
I think that I feel like they immerse you in a culture in a different way. If it's from somebody who is Japanese, who's born and raised in Japan, it's written in Japanese. Even the translation is going to be a more immersive experience than if I went there and then wrote a book about Tokyo.
Exactly. So. I'm not familiar with that writer.
Okay, I wasn't either. But here's the other thing. I found a lot of, so my mother-in-law spoke Japanese.
Cool.
And I found a bunch of books by this author in Japanese. And I'm like, every time I would see it, I would be like, oh crap, I can't read this. I can't read it. Like, I can't take it home. It's not worth me. What am I going to do with this? Right.
Yeah.
And then I found this one that has been translated into English. And I was like, okay, this is the one. So I don't know either. I Googled it. I didn't learn much so far, but this book was, I think it was originally published in, let's see if I can see, 1959 in Tokyo.
Okay.
So yeah, so
that's right.
I'm very excited to.
Nice.
I know.
That's cool. That's super cool. Oh no, now I'm like spiraling because that's one of my areas of enthusiasm too, or like that, and also just would encourage anybody, like, as much fiction and translation as you can possibly get your hands on, do it. And we're in a really fortunate position right now where there's increasingly more and more and more, and there's really wonderful presses out there. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's a great time. I mean, you go back even 10 years, 20 years especially, but you're only getting like the award winners in different, like you're getting a 1 or 2, like it's not much translated from only the popular languages, we'll say. And that's how you're getting. And now there's things coming out all the time that have been translated from all different countries, and increasingly, which I really love, because they also used to change them a lot when they would translate them into English. They would make it in anywhere town, or something, would change the names to John or whatever. And they're doing that less and less as well. So which I'm very much enjoying. Okay, so I have one more that isn't the best cover, but it's like the best story. So this is Captain Mayne Reid's Works, and it's The Desert Home is this one. But and it's in really great condition, and I liked that. It's obviously an old book when I found it, but I opened it up, and in the front, this is, I mean, you're not going to know who this is, so it doesn't matter. But look at the date, 1902.
Oh, that's great.
Right? So this is my husband's great uncle.
Oh my goodness.
And which is I mean, he doesn't know him, but that's cool. But then it's it's written in a 9-year-old's handwriting, 1903. And I was like, this is going home with me.
Yeah, the text, I mean.
Look at these. I know, the art in it. Cool. It's I don't even care what it's about. It's in good condition. I want to read it. The Adventures of a Lost Family in the Wilderness by Captain Mayne Reid.
That's it.
Right? That's all I need to know. But then it had that date, and I was like,
oh, yeah.
I mean, come on.
That's so special. I mean, because those are the things, especially, I mean, it's tough. I mean, this is just, again, a super precious thing to say, but one of the things about hunting down old books, and it's when it's a family, especially when it's within a family, and actually I snagged a couple of my grandparents, again, who didn't have a lot of books, but my brother had some boxed up the other day, and I was back over, and I came away with them. But when you have that stuff, it's fantastic. It's that little tactile bridge to the past. Then sometimes you find used books that have the notes.
I know.
What happened? There's some love that's missed, and you died, and it's oh man.
Well, I can give you some insight after this experience. We went through solid 50 boxes worth of books, not even exaggerating, and I can't take 50 boxes worth of books home.
Yeah.
So most of them were just mystery novels. They were just they weren't things that anybody had read anything, but I would say at least 50 of them were something. There was a name in the front. Some of them had a name from.
Yeah.
And I can't take home that many. So they went. A lot of them went to the Salvation Army, which is great. They're getting another life.
They're going into the ecosystem. It's true. Right. And then
it was in a condition.
you feel the thing. You feel something. I don't know, really. I do.
I
Any of the
know.
ones next to me, I keep this one, I mean, for multiple reasons around, but I just like this very young person wrote their name. It's Mary Scarlett. It's like, that's a badass name.
Right?
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
In this very old copy of Richard Hughes' High Wind in Jamaica. But yeah, that stuff, it's so neat. And like, in a weird way, there's something that, I mean, nostalgic for the ability to, or for a less boutique version of literature, where we are increasingly resembling high fashion in terms of expense and how how cool we're expected to be. But that, this is like for people, it's cost $1. It's it's inexpensive relative to your potential income, but also, like, for better or worse, a lot of times really great literature is getting sold in a really trashy way. But what's a better world? Is it when people who are like, well, there's a lady, half uncovered on the cover. I'm going to buy this Faulkner book. I feel like that's a little bit better than like, well, this has nothing for me. Like, I don't have, my Faulkner fell apart. I had a copy of The Wild Palms that looks like so trashy and so terrible but that someone grabbed that off the shelf, like, this is going to be real good, not a really intense, delicate portrait of a relationship as it collapses.
I'm a firm believer of read what makes you happy. Like, I mean, because no matter what, you're learning something. Your vocabulary is changing. You're learning, even if you're learning about like what this kind of chair is that I'm sitting in,
right.
And that's the only thing that they really like that's different in that you absorb something and it makes no difference. So are you enjoying it? Read it.
Do it. Yeah. I mean, that's especially what I wish I could tell my 22-year-old, 24-year-old self who's like, no. It's like, no, this is really good. And you should do it. No one's gonna, but it's, you
gotta get over it. You gotta come back around to it. It's just a natural progression.
Getting made fun of when you're a young kid, and especially if you're a young kid and you're into science fiction, fantasy, and horror. In the 90s, you're carrying around books that look absolutely ridiculous. Like, no one now has any room to complain. These books are gorgeous. They're really well put together. They're tasteful. But if you're reading in 1992, everyone's naked, everyone's ripped, and you look like a doofus running around with this stuff. You find, I mean, I just grabbed this because I love this cover so much. It's one of my favorite writers. A writer who means a great deal to me. I always keep it close. But this novel by Harry Crews, like, this is a literary novel that won awards. It was like a big deal. Look at that. Like, and
the cover, like the title and the picture, they don't look 70s. Like they go together at all. And
it knows how to sell. Like, here it is. Like, this is a book. Like, you people buy this book, and then you get like
they were just playing all the angles. They were like, we're gonna get certain people from the front, certain people from the back. Somebody's gonna love the picture, somebody's gonna love the title. We're gonna get everyone to read it. That's the magic. And then hopefully that will win awards. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like 20, whatever percent of people are gonna windmill it across the room, and the others aren't. But yeah, I'm learning more with like what typefaces are and like the names of them and stuff. But like looking at the ones that you had, like several of them. I mean, I'm a knucklehead, so I'm just gonna call it like the 70s squiggle typeface.
Yeah,
they have it, and whether it's that or this one's ultra squiggly. Like, love this Leonard Cohen post, but like super squig. Or like this other one that another obviously favorite writer of mine, but I tote this around, a very tasteful cover. From Ballantine back in the day for Outer Dark.
Very nice.
Yeah, very tasteful. I don't think that's preparing anybody for what lies within, which is why none of those books sold any copies back then. But yeah, I don't know. I I can keep doing it. I love having them around.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have a question.
Okay.
Who inspired you to begin writing historical fiction?
I really don't know. I think it was my own inability to make up stories that weren't just complete blackberrying rambles, right? Speaking of which, when I was visiting my brother, who works up in Shreveport, and I was getting some of my grandparents' books, and among them was a copy of the first book I wrote when I was 12. And it's a full novel. It's 200 pages long, and it's a historical novel set during Prohibition that I researched out of one book, and because I was sitting around reading Cornell Woolrich and stuff because I was a really weird kid. But so I've always done it. Either I wrote science fiction and horror, and that's at that age I was sending stuff out and getting rejections and stuff, typing on a typewriter. So it wasn't really a person, but it's definitely something that's been sustained by writers and by other writers. A thing that's been true for me with every book is that there's a book that saves it. There's another book that midway through the process I'll hit some snag, again in a very precious authorial way, and I will read something that helps me, and it's for those novels. Those are historical works. For the first novel, it was Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel, which had come out a couple of years or a year or two before I started working on my first book. The second novel, that one needed a little less saving because it was so modeled on a particular kind of prose from the time. Secessia is it's a 19th century novel. It's me doing Mysteries of New Orleans. And for the third book, it was Michael Ondaatje's In the Skin of the Lion. Midway through, I read that book, and it was when the 4-minute mile got broken. One guy did it, and then the next week, 3 did. Because you see that one person can do it, and you go oh, it's now the impossible actually seems achievable. Speaking of great New Orleans novels, Coming Through Slaughter from Michael Ondaatje. Another magical book. Though there's one part in that book in the early going that I want to ask him if I ever run into Michael Ondaatje. I'm gonna be did you type BARG' intentionally and keep that in the book past the copy editor? Is it supposed to be Barks? And I think it's supposed to be Barks. But that's the weirdest thing I could ever say to one of our greatest writers. If it ever happens, I'm in the room with him. That's what I'm going to say, and it'll be humiliating.
Yeah, well, I love how you've got it. I have a couple of those too, where you just know what you're going to say because what else are you going to say? Oh, I'm a big fan. Yeah, of course you are. Right. I mean, what are you going to have you been heard that 50 times today? Because it's probably at a conference and I'm a bookseller. Okay, so you got to come up with that one thing that he knows you read it. He knows you like it because he knows you read it multiple times. You've been thinking about this, so at the very least, you can impress him with your creepiness, with your stalkerness.
He's such a sweetie from what I have seen.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing.
I could push it. Probably push that tolerance to its end.
You're so we're not gonna meet at the hotel bar later.
Right.
Cool. I'll just go back to my room. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, but you know what? Live it. Do it. I completely agree. Never gonna see him again. Right. This is never happening again.
I regret it. Every time I didn't embarrass myself in front of a big name writer. There's plenty of times where I have, but then there's the ones that I didn't do that I regret. The embarrassment left on the table.
You just got to do it. I met John Connolly for the first time a few years ago, and I've loved his stuff for a long time. And actually, one of my favorite one of his, though, is his YA or middle grade series. And oh my gosh, I'm completely blanking on what the Gates. The Gates, I think, is the first one. And it's about the Hadron Collider when the scientists they make it, and something goes wrong and opens a portal to another dimension. And hilarity ensues. So when this is happening, these real news articles and stuff are happening, and they're gonna push the go button on the Hadron Collider, and they're like, it might make a black hole, and I'm like, don't do that. I'm doing that in my head. I'm like, why would you do that? That doesn't seem worth it. The risk, right. That's gonna go poorly. And then 6 months later, I read The Gates. And that's the setup. The setup is they push go and something bad happened. So when I met him, I was like, I was thinking the same thing about that Hadron Collider. what's the deal with that? You know, that was like, hi, my name's Rita, I work at Gardner's Bookshop. And I just came out with that, you know? And he was like, I know. And because that's the moment. That pause is the moment where he's either going to think you're crazy pants, or he's like, oh, we've just become friends. You know, and you don't know. I just had to wing it. He's like from Ireland, I think. Yeah. I'm not going to run into him. This is never happening to me again.
Right.
So, but luckily it went well. And he thought, you know, that's right. That's what he was thinking, where the idea came from. And I'm like, that's right. I did read your books and I did like them. I proved it. So, you know.
I mean, that's what I want. That's what I want to hear. Those things. For sure.
Sort of. I don't think he thought I was creepy, but you know, I'm never going to see him again. So it doesn't matter. We're good. And Hope, she says, I love the way y'all are talking about old books. It makes me realize that I'm not crazy after all for feeling and thinking the same things. No. Book lovers, we're just having a book lover conversation.
That's right. Yeah. That's what we do. And you know, that's the other cool thing. I'm just going to keep shouting out publishers who are doing reissues. Mm-hmm. You know, like I said, things like Paperbacks from Hell. I know that Valancourt Press is doing a whole bunch of reissues. This is very horror fiction centric. That's one of my areas of interest, like areas of buying and reading interest. I find horror very relaxing, or a particular kind. I'm not like, oh my God, the most intense stuff is like not relaxing to me either. But you know, and that's a weird thing, because I was looking for some great, I was like, there's got to be within a pretty expansive collection, some solid New Orleans set short horror stories. And there are, by 20th century writers and by some really good writers, but like I'm looking at my old pulp stuff, and you know, I've got short stories about blob monsters in Mobile, Alabama, and I do not have a single good, ridiculous, pulpy horror story in New Orleans. It blew my mind. There's a lot that, you know, will have one scene or something like that. Like there's some ones out there, but this maybe it's just some holes in my collection. But I didn't even bring my horror stuff.
I wonder if they thought, you know, New Orleans was like high society, so maybe we didn't get. You had to go outside. You had to go to the country, Mobile. You had to
go to the West Bank. You had to go to the North. But you know, like, and that's, I mean, for a lot of the ones that I've seen, that's true. And, you know, going back to the old book thing, it's something that if you're in a position to, like, new books, like we need to support writers who are publishing and writing now. Obviously, that's the thing. But, you know, if you're in the position to hook people up with old books, like as a teacher, that's one of the things I love to do is an assignment that I call the Dust in the Dark. Which is from a line from Helen DeWitt's novel, The Last Samurai, which is like, what are books for? Yes. Putting words in the dust in the dark. So I try to send them into the dust in the dark to find an anthology published 25 years before they were born at minimum. And then find a short story at random. It can't be by someone you've read, can't be by someone you've heard of. And they find such cool stuff. They find such amazing stuff in the, you know, best American short stories from 1934, like really wild things.
That's a great idea. That's such a great idea.
And then usually it's funny. Like we find funny stuff, or it's uncomfortable. Yeah. Like there's weird things, but it's a way of like encountering that. And also like getting a sense of your literary mortality. Cause like, this is not to be very heavy for everybody, but like, this is where it's going. That's where you go. You know, that's what you leave behind. And hopefully someone's in there, you know, picking around and loving it, whether it's because the cover's lurid or like the typeface is cool, or you just like books that have cowboys on the cover. Like it's fine.
Absolutely.
And I forgot to bring this one too. I found the other day. It's a novel called The Lonely Man, and it's a Western. I don't really care for Westerns very much, but it was this is the movie tie-in version, and it has to be the only, I mean, I say has to, but it's definitely the only piece of advertising art that I've seen that uses Jack Palance's butt as a selling, like painting of Jack Palance on the cover, like drawing a pistol, but it is his and his face. And it's like, who is like, damn, that Jack Palance action is, you know, what it's all about. I don't know. He seems pretty tough.
Who's the author? Do you know who the author is? Did you say?
No, I bought it solely on the strength of the cover. And, it turned up on Instagram the other day. Uh-oh, did I, sign out of the entire thing? Oh, no.
I can still hear you.
You can hear me, but...
Yeah, I can hear you. I don't know what you... Well, I can see you. Actually, I can hear and see you. So I don't know what you did, but I can still hear and see you.
Awesome. So, I'm going to talk to the void.
We'll just keep going.
That's what I get for trying to...
You're trying to link around.
Like
I didn't see it. I typed in Lonely Man, but there's a couple of titles. It's probably older. Yeah. It's an older book.
A very old book. The movie's probably the early 50s. But yeah, it was just there's so much stuff. And I don't know, especially millennial types, we're the cultural dustbin anyway. We sweep everybody's stuff up and pick out the things that we like. And so it's such a crossroad generation.
Well, like you were saying, okay, we're supporting new books and purchasing old books. I think that welcome back. Either way, it's a gateway. It's a gateway to either direction, because the idea, there's some people only read older titles, some people only read brand new titles, and I'm like, never pigeonhole yourself anywhere. It doesn't matter what it is, if it's a genre or a time frame or something. Because okay, another one that I have is just a very simple cover. It's really pretty, 1941, I think.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's a romance novel. Somebody could pick up the brand new beach read that comes out tomorrow and read that and enjoy it, and then pick this up and read this and enjoy it.
Absolutely.
And so it's don't, if this is the book you start with, great. You can move right on to somebody who, a friend who's coming out this summer, or you can start there and go, oh, you like that? Try these, because I know they came out 60 years ago. Just give it a shot. I promise you, if you liked, these couple of points about that, you're going to like this.
Right.
And it's the same way. And I love doing that. That's one of the fun things about the job is you come in and you say, okay, well, I really liked this, but I don't really know what to read now. I'm like, oh, let me get you, this and this. And I don't pay as much attention to when it came out as I do to, you tell me the two things you liked about it.
Right.
All right. Now I'll find you something that has something similar to the things you liked in that book. Don't get hold up that it came out in the 40s. Don't get hold up that it came out yesterday. It's
right.
Just give it a shot. Give it a shot. If you can get over that stigma, sometimes people have, or things that are called sci-fi or called romance. Or just read it. If you hate it, come back. Tell me, literally, I could be totally off here, but it's a good book. So just read it. If you like good books, just read it.
Exactly.
Well, I'm glad you made it back, because we pretty much made it to the end of our hour. I know. It always happens faster than you think it's going to.
Yeah.
Especially when I started these a little over a year ago, I was like, how am I going to talk for an hour? I've never done anything like this. I'm like, but we're just going to see what happens.
Yeah.
And now it's here we are.
It's great.
We did it. We made it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to, hold on. I want to make sure that I get the link to your books. I think I linked it earlier, but I'm going to do it again. All of Ken's books. Oh, you know what? We didn't touch on, and if you can stay with me for a couple more minutes. Sure. What are you working on?
Well, so I'm working on what is either the capstone of my little sequence novels, which follows a particular bloodline from the early 19th century and in this current book into the near future. The first novels around the Louisiana Purchase and the West Florida Rebellion, and that. So the focus, for me, is what I'm kind of think of or stake out as my regional idea. So the Florida parishes, and across to Pensacola, because that's where I've grown up. And anyhow, the new one's called tentatively, because the title always gets changed. I always change it. I have a lot of wonderful editorial help because I'm not a good titler, at least at the outset. But right now it's called The Great State of West Florida. And it is about a rogue group of Florida representatives who, in the face of a failed statehood for DC, split Florida in two to gain more senators. But then it brings my crew of knuckleheads into the 21st century and lets me kind of rehash some of the early revolutionary stuff in our own time, which has also necessitated changing a lot of details as things have unfolded in a relatively distressing way. But yeah, so that's what it is. It's a roaring rampage of revenge.
I actually really like your title because I didn't know anything about West Florida as a concept until I moved to New Orleans. And then not even New Orleans, like I had my son and he's like 3, we're trying to go do things, out, like cultural things. I'm reading this like Florida parishes, West Florida, what is this? And I'm like, I thought I knew all about Florida, born and raised in Florida. And then there's this whole like, wait, Florida and Louisiana, that's just the same thing. What is happening? And I'm not even like super knowledgeable in the history, but that was fascinating. So just the idea you put West Florida in some capacity on the cover right there is like, what?
Excellent. I'm going to use thank you. I'm going to use that as ammunition when my editor is like, I think we should be more evocative.
They're like, what is this West Florida you're talking about? No one knows about that. Like, with the people who know.
Yeah,
and they will buy my book.
I mean, the opportunities for like, I've got the state seal and all that kind of goofy stuff, in my own terrible little drawings. But yeah, that's what it is. It's
yay!
It's an intense one. So everyone who enjoyed the relative lack of intensity in the last one, I'm for a brief period of time, I'm leaning down because under my desk are like all of my like remainders and stuff and my other copies, because I have nowhere else to put them. And I don't know. I definitely don't want them at like eye level. But anyhow, I went from being a blue. I'm not a blue and white writer anymore. I'm back to being a red and black writer, I think. So
there you go. I'm here for it. I'm here. All right, Ken. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. It was fun.
Thank you. It was a blast, and thank you all, and thank you for the questions.
Yes, everybody, thanks for watching. Thank you for commenting. It was great having you, Kent, and have a good night.
Yeah, you too. All right, see ya. Bye.
Bye.